Hello, how are you? I'm Iris. Today I'm just super excited because I'm going to talk about Haruki Murakami. Haruki Murakami is a staple of Japanese literature, and if I'm not biased, I think he's one of those authors you have to read. However, he is a very prolific author with lots of genre-bending novels and short story collections. There's so many out there, and certainly some books are more intimidating than others. So in this video, I'm going to recommend 5 of his books that I think they are best places to start with reading Murakami's works. Let's get right into it. First book I would recommend with all my heart is After Dark. Often I feel it's a book that people don't mention very much. I'm sure if you have never read Murakami before, you probably heard about your friends mention Norwegian Woods, 1Q84. I agree those books are very accessible for the readers in the especially Western world. But After Dark is a perfect book for someone who has never read Murakami's books before, but also who wants to get a taste of his way of handling magic realism, not as wild as some of his other books. But After Dark, it is pretty short, very simple prose. The story was set in only one night, from midnight to early morning, so it's very easy to follow through. Reading this fiction will make you feel as if you are in a fever dream. It's one of the few books that Murakami wrote in the third person, but he was so genius in a way to put the reader the same perspective with the author, just in an extremely intimate way. And for each scenery, such as in a bar, front desk, of the hotel lobby, in a diner, or in an office, Murakami will tell you the particular music piece was playing at the background in the story. So if you follow through the leads and playing those music accordingly while reading the book, like I did when I was reading this book, the reading experience was immersive ever can be. It's just one of my favorite books. I love it to pieces, and I would highly recommend you all to give it a try. Just to experience it will be the best time. Now, Norwegian Wood. It is very iconic, however, not my favorite Murakami, if I'm honest. I would even say it's my least favorite. Personally, I just cannot get enough of that kind of out of the ordinary of his Murakami signature style. However, I do think for someone who has never read his works, and if you are not a big fan of magic realism, this book is very much grounded in the real world and pretty much had a little magic realism or that kind of dreamy surrealism that most of his other novels have. And Norwegian Woods is pretty much a coming of the age book of a Japanese young man, Toru, in the 60s. It talks about, a lot of trigger warning. It talks about depression, emptiness, purpose of life, death, and love. If you are interested in existentialism, this book is perfect for you. One thing though, it got a lot of sexually explicit descriptions, but rather cringy. That's the one thing I cannot rave about Murakami's writing. But most part, it's very beautifully written about depression and solitude. I especially love the first chapter. I read so many times. Okay, this one, Hard-Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World. I know the title is mouthful. This is possibly the most underrated of Murakami's novels, but also one of my favorites. I will recommend you read this one after you have read After Dark. So you have set a proper expectation of his storytelling, then taking on this journey with much weirder, with more fantasy elements and more complicated storylines, where 2 separate stories kind of intertwine here. When I read this book the first time, I feel like more than half of the books, I just don't get it. Like I understood so little because the framework of the plots is so fragmented, but I still just cannot put this book down. Murakami can just grab your attention in a way that you just want to experience every second of it. I don't want to give away too much about the plots, but One World was set in 80s in Japan with a kind of information war going on. Some people classify it as a light sci-fi, but I would say it's more of dystopia, but not a typical dystopia plot. Very experimental, but fascinating. It's absolutely Murakami's classic. It was mind-blowing when I first read this book. I'm actually rereading this right now. I'm sure it will hold up the place in my heart. If all the books I mentioned above sound still too much for you, then The Elephant Vanishes is a very good place to start alternatively. This is a short story collection that shows the diversity of Murakami's writing. All the stories are very rich, strange, surreal, but also honest, I would say. I love his novels, but his short stories are my comfort food. I'm not in love with every single piece per se, but some pieces I will always come back to if I'm not in the mood to read anything new. None of these stories are at any profound background with a heroic protagonist going on for a great journey, that kind of thing. Instead, most of the stories are more about mundane of life, very grounded, but mixed a hint of magic realism, surrealism. They can be horror or suspense some sort, but to me, just purely cozy read. My favorite piece is called the 100% girl, 100% perfect girl, one beautiful April morning. I know it sounds weird, but so straightforward, very realistic, and also very magical. Last but not least, of course, I have to mention the Wind Up Bird Chronicle. I probably made this video so I can talk about this book and hope everyone reads it. This book is a surrealism masterpiece. It's more than 600 pages, might be daunting, but it's so addictive, like watching a dreamlike movie. The storyline is very simple. It's about this protagonist's journey of looking for the dark, mysterious world to take on his brother-in-law, whose name is Naboru Wataya, and in a battle between good and evil to win back his wife and also get his life back, pretty much. There are many storylines going on at the same time though, some presenting by memories, some by letters, some by first perspective. There are even parts about World War II. Usually I'm not a fan of historical fiction elements, but when you cannot tell if it's really a historical event or it's just some kind of crazy dream. But of course, not everything was explained in the end, like most of Murakami's novels, but no one cares. At least I don't care. Reading his work doesn't need to have all stories to make perfect sense. It's okay that some puzzle pieces don't fit together at the end, but it's always satisfying as you feel like stumbling across a wonderful and unbelievable secret. I just recommend this book my whole heart. It is a masterpiece of both Japanese literature and fiction as a whole, I believe. What I love about Murakami's books is that his prose is so simple yet very detailed that makes everything going on in his stories seem so mundane. At the same time, those details that brings to the table are both realistic and ridiculous. With that, they have ability to draw the reader into any setting that Murakami wants you to. Ultimately, you got so invested in the plot and grow with the characters, and he takes you on each dreamlike journey, and you are always surprised at where you end up with. I could never put his books down. Once you start your Murakami habit, you tend to just keep going. I can go on and on talking about his works, but I need to stop. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Hope to see you again soon.